think what we're all feeling, and everybody is sort of, like in 2021, there was a sense of what I saw someone describe as a Cambrian explosion. There were so many new ideas, and it was so exciting, and everything was an all-time high, and everything seemed like a good idea. And I mean, not like I remember when WAGME was still a thing, right? Like everything was going to work out. And not everything did, and that's the way that goes. But like now in this cycle, there's kind of a sense that, well, we still have the ideas from last time, but what really are the new ideas? And there's a sense that the pace of innovation within Web3 might be slowing down. And the solution to that is we need more devs. And we need the devs that we have to be able to innovate and ideate and deploy much faster. And Cookbook is doing that. And I think that's really what excites me about the product and the team and the opportunity to help is like, I've been in crypto now for a little over 3 years. My first role was at Coinbase, and then I left and joined OKX, and then I was at a marketing agency called Scribe. And every step I feel like has brought me closer and closer to the heart of the space. And now at Cookbook, it's sort of like, all right, well, I'm sort of like right next to the fire now, where it's like I'm working with devs. These are the people who are creating the ideas, who are going to drive this space or not, and we're trying to help them. And that's a great feeling. I really I enjoy that. I appreciate that. And so I think people get that, and they see us as a tool that's coming through that's really filling a need for devs.
It's so awesome because it does really speak to the goal of Cookbook in increasing the accessibility, and that's maybe something that we talk about a lot on the podcast here, and I'd love to get your opinion on is as Web3 is starting to expand and reach more into our regular lives. We call it Web 2.5 on the podcast, but like that space as we start to bring more people on chain, right? Cookbook seems like it has an integral role in that. And how do you see that Web3 space expanding? In which areas? Is it the chain abstraction area? Do you think it's more so in the DeFi space?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not a coder. I'm not really a particularly technical person. I used to be a lawyer. And so what you learn as a lawyer is the ability to like learn something new. If it's, there's a case that's about like, I once did a case on international coal shipments. I didn't know anything about that. So I read about it for like 2 hours and then I was like, all right, I got it. Let's go. What do you need? And so, you learn to be able to drop into a sort of technical area and learn enough to understand the issues. And I taught myself crypto in that way. And then I wanted to start playing around with it. What is this coin? What is that coin? Like what is the difference between like a blockchain and Hedera hash graph, like starting to learn all of these different nuances back in, 2020 and 2021. And then what is DeFi and all of that? And what, like without any formal finance training, what are all these Lego blocks and these different interest rates, all this stuff. And I think that, it's something where I was able to get enough to like basically understand what was going on. So I don't know that I have any particular expertise about like who's going to win or where it's going to grow. I mean, I remember in 2022 when the winter hit and the cycle ended and, Three Arrows Capital and Luna collapsed and all of that. And then we started thinking about, well, okay, if you still believe in the space, then you believe it's going to come back. And I did. And so I started reading about like, well, what do we think is going to be next? The almost unanimous opinion of every, smarty pants in the Web3 space was it's going to be GameFi, right? We're going to see gaming, and gaming is where we're going to get all of the next generation of degens who like video games and like money and are going to love GameFi. That has not really materialized. And I really thought it would because that thesis basically made sense to me. And the people who were promoting it seemed like smarter than me. That has not panned out. I think a lot of the talk has been, number one, about just basic infrastructure, L1s, L2s, and number two, about RWAs, which I think are, kind of the end game. Like ultimately what we want is to be able to kind of represent on chain the things that we do in real life in order to use crypto as a way to validate, like, is this pair of Nikes authentic? Is this painting in the museum the original, or is this a very sophisticated copy? Can we start, using crypto to validate things that are going on in the real world? And I think that's fascinating. But I do think, I read a book about the history of Chicago. And one of the things they talked about in this book was the history of the railroads, because that's how you get to Chicago. And basically, like in America and in England, there was a huge railroad speculation boom for many years at different times, but in many years. And what you ended up with was people investing in railroads that went literally nowhere, where people were just like straight up rug pulling them. We're going to build a railroad from nowhere to nowhere. Would you like to buy a share? And the people, without really understanding where the railroad was, were like, yeah, sure, railroads are the thing, I'm in. And so what you ended up with was some people made money, some people lost money. But when it was all said and done, you had a tremendous nationwide railroad network. This happened in England and this happened in the US. And that's kind of what I see with L1s and L2s is people are like, do we need another L2? Why do we need this L1? Why do we need this? Why do we need that? And I say, listen, it's a railroad boom. Build them. If you want to bet on them, bet on them. If you want to bet against them, bet against them. Some of them will make it and some of them won't. But what we're going to be left with when the dust settles is the quote unquote multi-chain Web3 universe that I've been hearing about since I got in the space years ago. And I think that basically can work. I don't know exactly what it will look like, but I'm expecting that, as we look ahead 5 years, 10 years, and I'm already reading things that like the next iteration of the Ethereum roadmap is basically going to be abstraction, which you mentioned, to the point that Ethereum across mainnet, shards, L2s is going to feel like a unified experience. Now, if we can get there, that's obviously a game changer because, when I got in the space, like the bad UX was a feature, not a bug. If you went to Curve Finance and you couldn't figure out how it worked, they were like, if you can't figure out how this works, we don't want you here. Keep your money and go away, And then at a certain point that flipped and they were like, actually, I think we would like your money. Would you come back for a sec? We redesigned the website. And so, it became a thing where it's like, no, we want normies. We want institutions. We want to open this up. And I can tell you, I did some work with institutional clients at Coinbase. They are not very sophisticated about this. If you make it hard for them, they will quit. They will say, listen, I don't need this. I'm already making like a quadrillion dollars a year. If you confuse me and make me feel dumb, I will not do the work to figure it out. I will just leave. And so there is at this point, a need, I think, to like abstraction is a big part of fixing the UX. And I think that's going to happen as well. So, I think that like in terms of time horizons, right? Who knows? Like Monad is a project that I've done some work with when I was at my marketing agency. They're a partner of Cookbook. I know that team. They're, crack builders, right? They're the best. And they haven't even really launched their testnet yet. So who knows what this is all going to look like when it shakes out, right? It's a railroad boom. I'm pretty confident that when the dust settles, we're going to have a unified Web3 multi-chain experience. And I think RWAs will be part of it. I think GameFi will be part of it. DeFi will definitely be part of it. Stable coins, of course. I'm kind of anticipating that if, say in the next 5 to 10 years, the US is going to have to make a move and do something about a digital dollar. And I don't think the political will be there to do a central bank digital currency after seeing the experience in China, where it's, can be used as a surveillance tool. Like, I don't think Americans are going to love that. I think the solution there is you think about like a public-private partnership with someone like Circle or PayPal for PYUSD. That's going to be another use case where it's like, we got to figure out how to bring the dollar on chain in some sort of official way. And so I think that's coming. And so, yeah, I mean, overall, I'm very, very bullish on the space. I think that crypto and AI jointly are going to drive the US economy and the global economy for the next 20 to 30 years.